This is the Voices of Herriman podcast, the podcast that amplifies the voices of our community. Nestled here in the heart of Herriman, where everyone has a story. Whether you're a Herriman native, a newcomer, or an admirer from afar, I got you on this adventure. Welcome to the Voices of Herriman. Welcome to the Voices of Herriman podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Allred, and with me today is our special guest, Coach Hardcastle from Providence Hall. Coach, thank you so much for taking time out to be on the show.
Appreciate you asking me to be on.
Man, dude, it's almost that time. It's almost football season, man. Like, by the time this airs, you'll be in a couple games, but how excited are you for season?
Yeah, it's the best time of year, right? I mean, here we are. It's like, the new group of guys, right? And been off season trying to get them to mold together, and it's all culminating to right now, right? Like all the work that they've been putting in and trying to recognize that, each rep in the weight room, on the field, off the field has been building to this moment, right? And so all the anticipation building up and what it is, God, there's nothing better.
No, there's really not. I mean, coaching seems like it's been in your DNA. Football's been in your DNA. So, I mean, you were... Couple highlights. You were an all-state player at Wasatch High School.
Yes. And
then you went to Dixie, now Utah Tech, and were successful there. You got into the strength and conditioning world.
Yep.
And then you went into coaching. What really got you going as far as wanting to be a coach?
The first time I knew I wanted to be a coach was in high school. There at Wasatch, Coach Steve North. Awesome dude,
great
phenomenal coach, amazing person. He was doing football coach, track, women's basketball, teaching PE. We'd go and help him do his farm and move hay on the weekends and stuff, right? And it was just like, I just loved seeing the impact he had on all of us. And then knowing that it wasn't just one team, right? He had multiple and all the kids that got to learn those life lessons from that guy. And it was like, I could see myself doing that. And it was actually while I was at college and playing, I've always loved college football, but at that moment it was like, dude, it has to be college, right? And it was like, so it went from like high school to college. And I'm lucky enough to have been able to live that dream a little bit and be able to be a GA at UMHB, be a part of a national championship winning team.
A great program over there.
Phenomenal program, winningest coach in Texas football history. I mean,
that's saying something too.
Yeah, Coach Fredenberg's a incredible leader. One of my favorite thing was when we played a triple option team because so rare in college anymore. And so then he gets to go back on his 60 years of football experience, and he's just sitting there. He's like, "This is what we're doing." He didn't even have to watch much film, right? He knew exactly what he was going to do. And that game we had 6 turnovers and 2 defensive touchdowns. So I mean that dude knows his stuff. And so when you get to learn from those guys and see the game from their perspective, there's nothing better. But I don't know, as I was doing that, I remembered the impact that on the high school kids and what Steve was. And, I felt like I missed the mountains too much. Texas is too flat for me and got me, I knew I wanted to get back and do the high school route and be in the kids' lives day in, day out. And there's no turning back once you do it. I mean, it's addicting, really.
So you came on Providence Hall the first year of football.
Yeah.
What led you to Providence Hall?
It really was just I was in Texas, and I was finishing up my master's degree as part of that GA program. And as I was doing it, I was applying for 60, 70 different college football jobs and other high school jobs, and I had an opportunity because of a buddy to stay there in Texas, but saw the ad on Football Scoop that they were starting a program at Providence Hall High School, and called up the coach, and it was about half hour into the conversation. Coach Cal Williams was like, "All right, dude, yeah, like I wasn't even like planning this to be an interview, but I need you." So talked to the principal and got an interview with him, got a teaching job, and here we are 5 years later. I'm still here, through all the thick and thin of trying to start a program from complete scratch to being a team that is on the rise, really.
For real, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely on the rise. I mean, you came in as an assistant coach, and then after a couple issues and things like that, you became the head coach.
Yep.
What was that like? What was that journey going from watching the program, maybe being flux a little bit like that, and needing some stability, to really like answering the bell and saying, you know what, I will be, the leader that these kids need.
Yeah. Good question. I mean, it was, it was wild. The first practice I even showed up to, we had the defensive coordinator was trying to have the kids like basically hold hands to try and get out of the huddle to formation and get aligned and assigned, because they just had no football background. Right. And, there was a kid that had been telling a couple teachers that day to F off. And I mean, I was just like, what did I just walk into? Right. Like, I just went from a championship team to something that has no organization, right? Is starting from nothing. And, but just dived into it, and, just took advantage of any opportunity we had to teach the life lessons and to try and build up as fast as we can. And, that same kid that was telling teachers to F off is now in the military, spoke at graduation. And it was because of football, it was because of what he got to learn. And so when you get to see the good fruits of a sport like that and what it does for more than just a W or an L at the end of a Friday game, right? And what it does for someone for their life. I think that's what really makes it easy to try and step up and say, okay, we have to continue this, right? Like, I can't let there be more instability for these kids. Like, they need to have someone that's there, that cares about them, and is going to make sure that they get those life lessons.
Well, they definitely have somebody championing you to do that.
I appreciate that.
Man, Coach, you sent me over that coaching philosophy, and I just read through that. As a coach, I think that a coaching philosophy is paramount to any coach, but yours is good.
Appreciate
it's really
it.
detailed. It's really focused. Everything from what it means in the classroom to what it means for like feeder leagues. What shaped your coaching philosophy? What are some of the major things that have said, you know what, this has got to be in here. This is a turning event, so that I need this part of my philosophy.
Yeah. It's a hodgepodge of everything I've learned from past coaches, right? And then taken from what they've learned and what I've experienced, either good or bad, and from them, and been able to kind of just try and take a piece here, right? And then add my own little thing and really try and put together to make sure that I know that those are the things that matter. But it goes back to, as I was telling you the story earlier with Dale Belay, my Pee Wee coach from the very beginning, right? Some of the lessons that he instilled in me, the work ethic and being able to really understand that I could fight through anything, right? To Coach North, who taught me some of the lessons of recognizing when and where to use my energy too. That sometimes you got to step back and let things happen, because you can affect change in that moment, right? And that, and to use your energy wisely. To the college coaches and the lessons that I learned about the game, and realizing that at UMHB, where I was at with Coach Fredenberg, he took that place. He started that program there, and in 25 years has won several national championships, been to others, and almost 16, 17 different conference championships. But started it from scratch, and so trying to make sure that the leadership council runs in a similar way to what he did. That lessons I learned in the off season from him, like taking a step back from realizing that one day a week. Make it more about competition, get kids used to competition and being uncomfortable, because maybe just a normal lift would have been more effective for their muscles or whatever. But as an overall athlete and for life, they need to be able to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and they need to be able to be used to competition and thrive in it. And to do that, you have to have that opportunity, right? And you have to manufacture that as much as you can. So all those different things kind of, all those different coaches blending together, picking out what I think is the most important to try and try and make it just one cohesive plan.
I love it. I love competition. I think competition's sacred.
Right.
Man, I think there's nothing that makes you better than self-competition, competing with your brothers.
Yes.
You know, whether it's good or bad, or even compassionate competition where, man, you know, your enemies on the field, and then when you're off the field, you know, you are your brothers in arms.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, the thing that I really loved the most, the thing that really struck to me more, just like competition was one of them, but was the neutral mindset.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that next play mentality, that's something that all coaches would hope that athletes can learn.
Yeah.
Because one mistake turns into two mistakes, and two mistakes turn into three mistakes, and then all of a sudden the athlete's just not there. How was that created? Tell me a little bit more about the neutral mindset.
So it was a book by Trevor Moawad. He's a mental coach for Russell Wilson, for Alabama football, for Clemson football. I think it was the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's been a long list. But dude wrote the book on it, and I fell full just hard for it, right? Like realizing what a difference it makes. And I actually have kind of combined it with the growth mindset in education as being a teacher and stuff. And kind of and because the two really work hand in hand, is because you're focusing on the process and not necessarily the results, right? Which is what the growth mindset is. Whereas neutral mindset is the here and now, not looking to the future. And so I'm like, well, the process, the here and now, it's the same thing, right? And so you got to keep your mind on what you're doing at that moment if you want the results, right? And then really that your results, whether good or bad, should help you set goals for what you're going to work on in the process, the here and now next, right? And so I see it really as like a circular type pattern, right? But trying to get those boys to recognize that, yeah, you've set goals, right? You want to be a champion. You want to be able to say that you're an all-state player or go to college, play football, whatever it is. But just to say it doesn't matter and you're not going to achieve it unless you are working on that right now in this moment. And what can you do to get yourself there? And so, I bring it up just about every day with the players, trying to help them realize, this rep right now, it may suck to try and push yourself a little bit more on squat while we're doing it, or deadlift or whatever, right? But realizing that next rep, what you do there is what's building you towards what you want in your future. And if you are willing to focus on that and make that change in your mind, then you will be unstoppable, right? That you will be able to handle the downfalls, the failures and stuff better than you would when you just think, oh, that's what I'm going to do. And then it doesn't happen and people crash, right? And really with that neutral mindset, I think there's way less crash. And that's the biggest thing, right? Is that it helps you focus on failure as a learning process and puts you back in that mindset of I can do something about it.
Man, that's so well said, man. So this next segment, what we do is we usually share a quote. Now, right, coaches, they're the masters of motivation. They're the masters of all this stuff. So I thought instead of sharing a quote, we would ask you and athletes, I'm expecting you to hold them accountable, say like these are really his biggest quotes, but we want maybe 2 or 3 Hardcastle isms. That's something that would motivate the players that you say every time on the court, that when these athletes see this, they're like, oh man, the coach has said that to me a couple of times.
Man, God, it's tough. You put it on the spot to think of the things that I try and say all the time. I try to always say something different. I believe in a lot of alternate ways of trying to say stuff, because if one's not reaching them, if I'm not getting the results I want, then I'm going to find a new way to say the same thing. I try to do that a lot. I think that one of the biggest traditions that any player that plays at Providence Hall would know from me is really the fact that every game day I have to headbutt them. I headbutt every player I can during warmups. And
I love that.
And they know it and they expect it. And, I get too hyped, and that's what I got to do to feel like I'm still part of it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than seeing those kids, like, the first time you do it, and they're like, oh, crap, man, you just hit me harder than I thought you would. Like, yeah, dude. I've only made myself bleed like twice from it, but
I love it, man.
But it's worth it.
That's the lineman in you coming out, huh?
Yeah, well, you know it, dude. You know it, man. It has to happen. It's just what I do. I got some great ones. Like it's a great day to be a Patriot. I do bring up that neutral mindset just about every day I can. The big one that I try and share with them is Pat Strong. We're the Patriots. And so I want them to be able to realize that they've got the power and attitude to transform, right? Whether it's in the field, in the classroom, as a family member, brother, son, whatever it may be, to try and remind them of that as well.
That is Pat Strong. I love that, man. I love the headbutting too. That is so much fun. All right, this next segment is called the lightning round. So we're going to ask you some questions. What's your favorite football team?
Denver Broncos.
What about college?
College? Oh, this is a hard spot for me right now because losing the Pac-12 is rough on me, man.
It's a long run. Holy cow, what a shot.
That is the hardest question. Without them around, I'm going to go sentimental on this question, and I'm going to go Fresno State.
Fresno State. All right.
Yeah,
all
growing
right.
growing up about 30 minutes from there. My dad managed a hotel just outside of Yosemite National Park, and he got in with the school about having wine tastings and stuff, whatever, because they're an ag school there at the hotel. So we ended up with like season tickets and stuff, and we were just at every single football game, at every basketball game. And it's just some of my best memories, dude, of just being there, watching the Fresno State Bulldogs, Paul Pinniger, David Carr, the original OGs there with Pat Hill as the coach, and listening to the post.
Good old Pat Hill.
Pat Hill, man, listening to those post-game interviews. So I, with losing the Pac-12, because I'm a big Pac-12 homer, and now I probably won't be able to anymore, right? But so I'm going to go sentimental with Fresno State.
I like that. What's your favorite position group to coach?
Oh, always the O-line.
O-line.
I have to be the O-line. They're the guys, man.
You got to go to your roots.
I love it.
What's your least favorite position group to coach?
Wide receivers.
It's the divas.
It's the divas, man.
What's your favorite personal? I mean, you talked about the headbutting, so maybe that's it. But what's your favorite game day tradition that you still do?
I mean, it's probably got to be the headbutting is number one. Also, I like to have I'm not a really swaggy guy, but I always try to make sure I got my sunglasses. That's my big thing. And so
sunglasses,
yeah, I always have, but I like to have it a little bit goofy and have my own swag about it.
All right.
The kids laugh hard because I bought X-Tiger glasses off of Amazon that I use for my mountain biking, and I'll sit there and change out the lenses each game and stuff. And when it starts getting dark, I'll throw the clear lenses on those big old X-Tigers, and they got the dork bar down the nose, and I just go do it, And so sunglasses and the headbutton.
I love it. What is the best game day tradition that Providence Hall has or is creating?
So what I've been trying to really get going the last year or so is the Pat March. And so it was huge at UMHB, and I loved it. And they call it, they're the Crusaders, and so they called it the Cruise. But every home game they go cruise through the quad, through the student union building, which actually sits right on top of the stadium, and then down into the band's playing, cheerleaders, all that stuff. So really what we're trying to build right now is have that same kind of tradition where when we get there, the tailgate, it lines up, all the guys come off the bus, school song, band, cheerleader stuff playing while we go through the fans onto the field. So that's the big one. And I hope more people start coming to the tailgates and stuff and help us kind of make that a big game day tradition too.
So if people wanted to be involved in this tailgating, what's the best way for them to get information? Is it Instagram?
On social media? Yep. It's Instagram, making sure that you see, follow Providence Hall Football, follow PHS Stuco, and We always let them know when the home games are and the tailgates, and to be there at the stadium, and they do a great job. There's always food and face painting, whatever, for kids, and games all over the place, cornhole, whatever. And we often have food trucks and stuff too. So usually it's a pretty good, fun little activity. If you want to show up for a little bit on Friday and be there around 5, then you get to be able to be a part of something like that. It's pretty cool.
Dang, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there for sure. It sounds like a blast. Okay, best part about Friday Night Lights.
I would say the best part is when you are out there on that field and you realize, like, you don't even, you're so zoned in on what's happening in the game and with your players and the other coaches that you don't even notice what else is happening, right? Like fans, sounds, whatever. And when you get to see those 11 dudes just that are on the field execute what they've been learning, all of them do it, and to see the excitement on their face, just when you're just in that moment, I think is really the coolest thing about it.
Yeah, that gives me goosebumps. I'm ready to put me in, coach. I'm ready to go
myself
play.
Too, bro.
Bum me and all that. I'm going. Give me a jersey.
I don't know if with our beards we're going to be able to pass as high schoolers anymore.
Oh man,
find a way.
They probably hit me too hard. I'd be broken. What is your what's the best piece of advice you ever got?
Best piece of advice I ever got. Best piece of advice was from Keola Lou, offensive line coach at Dixie State. As I was coaching with him, I was his GA. Wish I had the chance to play for him. Incredible coach. Yeah. But learning from him as a coach, and he's the one that, with his connection, helped me get to UMHB and have that experience. But he told me, he's like, don't try and be someone else. Figure out who you are and what you do to motivate kids, right? And like, really, it just inspired so much soul searching myself, right? And that's what really got me on my path of trying books like with the neutral mindset, to realize that it takes what it takes, right? And like, that those are the things I cared about. And I'm not near as hard or yell near as much as Keola Lou. That's not who I am. But that piece of advice is really what set me up to make me feel confident in my coaching, is to really soul search and figure out who I am as a coach.
I love that. What's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Oh. I would probably say it's I was told once by a coach that, well, some guys are just high school coaches. And I was like, and in my mind, it was like, it felt a little bit as an attack at the time, but really that I was like, what's wrong with that? Right? Like, why would you say it as like a negative thing, or feel like, that your advice is to go back to high school because that's just what you are? And it's like, I think that in some ways there's nothing better, right, than being a high school coach and having the impact on the developing mind, and providing that, like you said, the stability for these kids in a super turbulent world, and that there's always one consistent thing, and that's the game of football and the lessons it teaches. And so I think that would be the worst piece of advice I got. I
would agree with that. What is your favorite failure? And we talked about failure, and you mentioned before, like, failure is nothing but a learning experience. Failures can, in a lot of ways, are probably better than successes. Yeah. What's your favorite failure? What failure has given you the best amplitude to be able to be who you are today?
A few, I think. I think one would be the failure of not being able to accomplish being the athlete I wanted to be as a player, or feel like athletically getting to a point where I was as much as I wanted to be, because through that failure, I had to fight so hard and find other ways and learn how to be athletic, right? And to try and find ways to be able to make sure that I learn the steps, learn the technique and stuff from the ground up. And so I feel like I have a knack for being able to teach kids who, especially like with offensive line, how technical it really can be to take kids who never considered themselves athletes and put them in a spot and teach them in a way that allows them to feel confident in what they're doing. One of the great stories, I think, from Providence Hall and what Providence Hall can do is Mike Torgeson, graduated a couple years ago, but that very first year he thought he was like a DB, and the head coach is like, "You're with the offensive line, bud," and takes him over there, and yeah, he's like, "That's not you, bud," so took a kid who'd never played football, didn't have any confidence in his athleticism, and took a lot to teach him. And yet he ended up being, at the time we had to be independent, not part of a region, but he was an all independent player. Between, it was at the time, there was Judge and Cottonwood, and there's like 4 Timpanogos, Payson. There was other schools that were independent at that time, and he was an all independent player. And he left the school with tears because he was now confident, changed the way he felt about his social life, changed the way he felt about school, because he found confidence through that. And so I think that would be one of my the failures that I learned the most from, was being able to realize that I wasn't the greatest athlete, and kind of failed at that. But through that, found a way to be able to coach more because of it.
Well, and yeah, I think that's a perfect example, because the lives that you're obviously touching and then the lives you will touch are going to be much greater. Speaking of lives that you've touched, normally we do a last question. This one's a little bit different. So I was out at, and shout out to Intermountain Tire Pros, but I was talking to a man named Carson.
Yep.
Right, who you affectionately called Swiss, because he said that he played every position. He said that because Coach Hardcastle knew that I was capable of it, that he asked, basically you asked him to do, no matter what it was, you asked him to do, and he started believing in himself. He talked about your first win. Yeah. You remember that one?
Absolutely. There's a lot of things I remember about that one. Not a lot of people know or realize too, with that being Whitehorse High School, which is on the Navajo reservation. And when we went down there, they were the most amazing people. They were giving our fans Navajo tacos, free food, candy, whatever.
I love it.
And there was an actual wind talker that carried the American flag out onto the field, and they sang the national anthem in Navajo. And I'm getting chills right now and goosebumps just thinking and remembering that, because listening to that national anthem in Navajo is one of my favorite memories in coaching. Not only just the fact that that game was great and we were able to get that first win and the relief it brought, and the look on those kids' faces that they didn't fail, right? That they accomplished that. But that game itself was incredible.
Yeah. I love that so much. He says, just going back to Carson, he says, I personally would not be in the position that I am without Hardcastle. He has helped me with so many things, whether I'm having a rough time with my family or with school. He was always there for me. He was there for me to kind of vent and would give me advice. He would just always be there when I didn't feel like I had anyone there for me. I just want to say thanks to him for getting me where I am now. And for him, I'd do anything. He was a coach, a friend, a therapist, and sometimes he was all three to help me weather the storm. It was football, it was life, it was school. And all I know, I mean, he talks about how free time he'd go and study. You would help him with that. Man, I can't even read all this without... He was there for the students at Providence Hall as a faculty member. He was easily the person with the most school spirit. I've been going to Providence High School, or Providence, ever since kindergarten, and our assemblies were never really loud, and we didn't have a lot of school spirit. One year we had an assembly, and he was in it. He dropped it in the middle in a full metal split in front of the whole school. And I think it was the loudest that I'd ever heard that school cheering for him. That's the man he is, a man of many talents and mysteries. And that's why everybody loves him, because he can do the things that you wouldn't expect him to do, like drop the splits. And there's nothing like him on earth. Greatest coach ever.
Wow.
So coaching is everything.
It is.
What, man, I'll tell you what, if I had boys, I don't want them to come play for you.
I appreciate that.
But what does that mean to you to be able to have that impact on young men's lives, young men that are leaving your school better than when you found them?
It's why we do it, right? I mean, we don't, it's not for money. It's, I tell people because it's my hobby. It's not something I'm paid for, really, right? It's just what I want and choose to do with my time. And, it's those moments that make it all worth it. It's, a 1-10 season or a 1-9 season. It was the COVID year when we went 3-6 and had to cancel a game because of it and stuff and all those things and the trials and tribulations that those boys went through the first few years of this program. And through all those hard things, they were so much better for it, right? And to be there every step of the way and help them be able to recognize the positives and see that and find confidence. I don't know what could be more fulfilling.
Man, you are amazing, and we are so blessed and so lucky to be able to have you in our town, our coaching, our kids, and I'm so excited to see what happens this year. But with that, we will turn it over to you for your voice. And, a huge shout out to Providence Hall. You hired a good one. And guys, let's get out and enjoy Friday Night Lights. We've got 3 great schools for Friday Night Lights. Man, make sure you're picking and getting to all 3 of them. But with that, we'll turn the time over for your voice.
I think what I'd love to be able to make sure I get the message across is that, high school football is about being able to participate. It's about being able to have those life lessons. And it's about being able to become bigger and better than you were before. And knowing that is being accomplished is huge. But, I worry about some of the teams in the area, in the valley, where we get so many kids that so many kind of feel like they drop off and they don't finish 4 years of playing. And, that they don't finish those life lessons, that they don't get that as much. And so I think my shout out is, to make sure that kids stick with it, be able to get those lessons. And if not, find a way to be involved in something else, and know that, Providence Hall is out there, and we're providing that experience. We're providing those opportunities, and everything's getting bigger and better. It comes from the fact that the people there are lifting where they stand and trying to improve the lives of the young kids in the community. And we'd love to have that support and have people involved in the school, involved in our program. Come to the games, come see it. We put out a heck of a show, and we have some amazing players. A couple dudes that are already committed, offers to SUU, and other ones that are being looked at for college opportunities. And so be there, come out, support, and see what these young men in the community are capable of, because it's incredible.
Man, I cannot wait. I am so pumped. Guys, we just want to take a couple seconds before we close out and thank our big sponsors, Redemption. Obviously, you guys come on down, check us out down here. Thursday night, we've got some country dancing. We've got, if you mention the podcast, you get 50% off Mac and Cheese Balls. This is a great place to be, great environment.
Those are good mac and cheese balls too.
They're so great, right? whether you grill or you drink, it's a great place to be. Also, shout out to Mix Exit Studios for everything that they do, get us produced and everything like that. You ready?
Ready.
Okay. Herriman, we got you. Thanks again, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of the Voices of Herriman podcast. I hope you've been inspired, moved, and have connected with the stories and the passion shared by our community. As I wrap up this episode, remember, the journey does not end here. Keep exploring, keep sharing, and keep connecting. Together, we can create a vibrant, supportive, and thriving community. If you have a story to share, a suggestion for future episodes, or just want to say, hey, I'd love to hear from you, reach out on social media at Voices of Herriman and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Before we go, a heartfelt thank you to Mix at Six Studios for producing and editing our podcast. Head over to mixat6studios.com to learn more about all the amazing services they offer. To the amazing individuals who have shared with me their stories and our fantastic listeners, you make Voices of Herriman a meaningful experience. Until next time, take care, stay connected, and remember, I got you.